Welcome traders, Adam Harris here. So let's have a quick look at the economic calendar for the week ahead. First of all, it is the first week of November. Where does the time go? Only about another 6 weeks of 2025 markets remaining. Now, there is a lot of US dollar news that is expected here, and I think ADP could be a little bit wild. Of course, the US is still in shutdown, and it could continue to remain that way until January. And of course, not expecting much from most of the remainder of the news here. So it's kind of a weird place to be because you're both anticipating volatility if something comes out, if the data is bad, but at the same time, no data may be released, and then the markets will just continue to tick over, which makes it a very odd place to be. Let's go to the charts and see what is happening technically. So the VIX here is still operating near the lows, and of course it can be a bit of a responsive one. So if the markets were to experience volatility, we wouldn't necessarily get a heads up. But part of the reason I show this every week is to show you that generally speaking, while we still remain, let's call it below 20 overall, and this is supposed to be the fear index, there just really isn't a lot of fear around at this time. And of course, sometimes you can get a bit of a heads up. It could start to build up over time. It's not showing anything just yet. If we have a look at the dollar index, so this is where it gets interesting. We've had a stronger dollar this last week, but we are still operating within the monthly range. So let me just clean this up. Give me 1 second here. Just wanted to kind of update this so we can have a look. The monthly is still stuck within a range. It's coming up to the top of the range. And so hopefully this week we get some kind of a breakout of that. It may not happen. We may just reject it. And we might actually find that the dollar starts to weaken this coming week if it stays within this range. So be prepared for that, please. This makes trading, swing trading incredibly frustrating because none of the trends are sustained long enough for us to actually be able to take advantage of them. Here we can see that monthly for euro dollar still stuck within that range, and therefore there's downside potential. There's very much the possibility here for downside potential on euro dollar. But as I said, if we find that during the week the trend just stays where it is and starts to reverse, that's likely that dollar starting to weaken. So just be prepared for both. I feel like this isn't a very constructive video so far, but absolutely there are just times when there's uncertainty and we're waiting for that certainty. Interesting, as I said before, nice to see cable starting to break and starting to move, similar to dollar Kiwi, or Kiwi dollar, I beg your pardon, was showing a bit of weakness there. Dollar yen here, certainly actually pushing and moving higher. So one of the more attractive ones, very much better technical behavior as well. Nice pullbacks, bullish candles, moving averages fanning out. So dollar yen, much more attractive. Dollar Swissie is very similar to euro dollar. It's really not doing a huge amount at the moment. It is strengthening, but it is still stuck within the range. And the only reason I just keep repeating that is because by the end of the week, we could be going the other way. But hopefully we'll break out just so that we can actually start to get a bit of action in the markets. Dollar CAD as well, finishing with a bit of an indecision bullish candle here, just trapped below that 50-period moving average, and you can see quite a few wicks with exhaustion here. So there's still a little bit more upside potential on this. This trend is going higher. The question is, will it stay that way? Let's have a look at gold. So gold, for me, is on my watch list. As I said, this was not necessarily as bearish a finish for October as I was expecting, and a pullback here is not necessarily a bad thing. The weekly also didn't finish as bullishly as it could. So kind of a bit of a weak kind of resolution for October. However, for now, my expectation is still that the weekly trend is intact. And what I'm looking for here is a break above the high or the low, whichever one comes first. We could still potentially have a bit of a further correction, but on the lower time frames, it really does appear as though gold is attempting to turn around. And so this week, I'll be looking for changes. I'll be looking predominantly, my plan A is to see this attempt to resume its uptrend and move higher, which means watching it on the 4-hour and 1-hour time frames. I'll treat it as ranging until such time as it either breaks to the upside and attempts to go back up to the old highs, or if it breaks to the downside, but it is currently ranging on the lower time frames. It's not too overextended on the monthly now. If you think about it, it's almost half the distance to the moving averages and therefore is not currently overextended, and so it could actually continue up from here back up towards those old highs. So I'm leaning plan A, I'm leaning bullish on this, just waiting for it to pick up and start going higher. And the same actually for silver, which has had a really nice correction. Let's have a look at the global indices. So for now, strong signs of exhaustion there. Definitely, it's going to battle, but at the same time, it's busy pulling back into these old highs and back into the moving averages. We did go to all-time highs as well last week, so it wasn't a terrible week overall, showing just some signs of indecision. And so this week, what I'm looking for is a nice bullish candle to form here and a break of the high, and see if the markets continue to take another run and keep going. The same here actually with the S&P, looking for a nice bullish candle to form in the early parts of this week, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, and looking for that to then start another attempt back up towards these old highs. The NASDAQ, again, a nice correction here back into the moving averages. This would be amazing if we could get that. Again, a nice little bullish candle, and then I'd love to see it break it and make its way back up to these highs. The wicks are just showing some signs of exhaustion here. It could very well be that we're working ourselves up towards a bit of a weekly correction at this time, even though we just had one. But for now, those markets, there's no reason to suspect just yet that this is ready to quit, and therefore I'm prepared for a bullish signal. You could just see the choppiness when we have a look at the Russell 2000, that weekly, just crazy. It's very difficult for the markets, although they're obviously continuing higher with regards to, let's just say, from an investment perspective, buying and holding. At the same time, technically, they're very, very tricky to trade, so you have to be quite careful with that. But point here is, this is definitely showing some continued bearish divergence and is increasingly choppy here. So for now, my expectation is actually that this will potentially work its way into a range. And at some point, we might get a correction, or the consolidation will work some of this divergence out, and then it will correct and continue going up. Let's have a look at the FTSE. The FTSE enjoying a really, really strong week last week. Also a little bit overextended. We'd love to see this pull back into the moving averages, but overall looking very nice and healthy. Non-US markets just seem to be very happy with how things are going at this point in time. We have a look at the DAX. The DAX, I say that, the non-US markets, but the DAX itself is still stuck within this range. It's incredibly choppy here, and I'm not seeing much for celebration just yet. It is consolidating, and I do think that when it ultimately connects with the moving averages here, we could see a nice breakout, and it would have had 6 or 7 months worth of rest and break. It'd be good to go for another year potentially. So definitely keeping an eye on that. And then just finally adding in the Nikkei, because this has had just one incredible year, just continuing. It's actually going parabolic. You can clearly see how the angle of momentum is starting to stretch out. It's starting to accelerate, and is starting to look and is just, as I said, is starting to go parabolic. Very nice, big, strong month for October. And usually when you get a big candle like this, it might start to slow down after that. So that's going to be interesting, whether we continue to push up. We're now well overextended on the weekly and, of course, on the monthly, and starting to go parabolic here. So at some point, we will get a bigger correction. We might find ourselves coming back down to 45,000 or 40,000, but that may only be in January or February. And as I said, for now, it's looking really nice and bullish. So I'd like any kind of pullbacks here to be seen as potential buying opportunities for myself. Definitely one on my watch list, and just looks really good. Let's have a look at that 4-hour time frame. I don't have the 4-hour time frame on this particular instrument, but yeah, it looks pretty good. Then let's have a look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is still ranging at the moment, still holding at this level of support, and as I said, just predominantly going sideways, struggling to get above that 116 level, but otherwise seems to be holding where it is. Ethereum, very similar. Also, you can see lots of wicks underneath here, buyers keeping it above that level. I am looking to see if we ultimately are forming a little bit of a descending triangle over here, if we're going to break lower, but for now that level appears to be holding. What I'd be looking for this week, if we do get it, would be a break lower and a single big red candle closing below these lows. That would be a sign that we're going to head lower. For now, I'm going to treat it as staying and holding at that support. Let's move on and have a look at the Mag 7. I guess they want to call them Mango now. And you can see here again, a little bit overextended for Apple. Looks great on the monthly. No problems there. Nice weekly pullback. Continuing up. The daily looking pretty good. The quality of the daily trend looking really nice. Might slow down a little bit now, but overall looking really nice and bullish. Microsoft struggling. So this one actually not doing as well here. Let's just bring this in. You can see really battling with a level of resistance over there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see this get knocked back a little bit. But from a monthly perspective, it just appears as though it's doing a nice consolidation, similar to what we saw with the DAX, the German DAX, and therefore it's going to take a bit of a breather and then might ultimately kick off either closer to Christmas or in the new year. Amazon. actually having a really good time at the moment, breaking up through all-time highs there, and seems relatively happy with that. And it was a good finish for the month, seeing it actually gapping up, and so far also looking relatively strong. Then we have Google. So Google also doing very well at the moment, also going parabolic. Look at how we see the increase in the size of the monthly candles, and we can see that angle starting to get steeper and steeper and steeper. So from an investor's perspective, I do not see this. I'm very wary of this as a buying opportunity. I would rather see pullbacks on the monthly, but from a technical trading perspective, there could very well be buying opportunities here on any of these pullbacks. Meta, pulling back on the monthly. So this is an interesting one. It is starting to lose monthly momentum here, which means we could be about to go into a sideways kind of period. For that would be quite long, possibly for 2026. Possibly we're seeing a bit of flattening out there, but my plan actually is to look for a bullish candle in November. Nice, strong bullish candle to form here, and then to see it attempt to resume that trend and pick it up again. So let's see how that goes. Nvidia also continuing to climb quite a bit higher on that monthly time frame, also looking pretty good on the weekly, not too overextended. The daily is actually looking okay. For now, the bull trend on Nvidia is still intact. Let's have a look at Tesla. Tesla struggling a little bit with that 470 level, but here it's looking relatively strong, and on the daily it looks relatively strong. So this week we could see it break out. We could see it potentially break out. So I'm looking to see again if we break up above this level, close above it. If before we do that, for some reason we have to come down here and break below these lows, then yes, that's likely to obviously result in a bigger pullback. But for now, all signs point to it being just that more bullish than bearish. Netflix, nice little pullback on the monthly now. This is a great area for it to potentially now resume its uptrend. Let's just have a look at this, clean this up a bit. And we are on a downtrend here on the daily. We are on a downtrend here on the weekly, but that monthly, we're just experiencing effectively a pullback coming into these old highs here. So this is a good area as well to look for a bullish candle. So interesting. That'll just be a couple this month that I'll be waiting to see if we get a bullish candle in November. If that's the case, and if that Santa Claus rally possibly steps in, we might actually find that we finish strong for the end of the year. And crude oil. So crude oil here actually in this downtrend, but is attempting to work its way back into an uptrend. It's got a higher low here, but it's got to break above these highs to convert that into an uptrend. And remember that the weekly is in a downtrend, the monthly is in a downtrend. And so the question is now whether it's going to succeed in doing that. So that is something that we have to see is going to be the case first. Before I kind of jump the gun, we could actually find that it continues down here, back down towards the lows, but you can see it's attempting to change that trend. Let's see if it succeeds in doing that. And then for you, Usman, just for you, special request, Tesco, you wanted me to have a look at it. Just a great quality monthly chart. Hasn't connected with the moving averages for a while, but is doing fine. At some point, I would expect a pullback that'll be something similar to this or something similar to this. That weekly is also looking particularly good. So this is one of those ones that's better as a buy and hold. Technically, yes, I'm sure you can get some nice, entry opportunities, but for the most part, the quality of the trend is just so good across the board. This is looking particularly good at the moment. And I do think that as the cost of living and inflation and everything starts to spiral but out of control, it's possible that somebody such as Tesco will benefit from that. So there we go. I'm going to leave you with that for now. The markets continue to look bullish technically. Even as we run into Christmas, they could continue to do that. We may get a correction in January. That can often be the case. We get through Christmas, and then there's a bit of a correction that could very well be the case unless something unexpected comes out. We just had another rate cut, and so therefore the markets might be taking advantage of that. Historically, statistically, they tend to go up on rate cuts, and we're just getting rate cuts at this point in time, so the markets are still expected to move higher. That's my expectation. Question really for me, I think, with opportunities is with gold and silver. Are they going to be able to pick up their trends? Excuse me, or are they going to go for a slightly longer correction? So are we done with our shorter term daily correction, or is it looking for sort of a bigger weekly correction? So I'll leave you with that. Please trade responsibly, manage your risk appropriately, and there's just not as many opportunities in the currency markets here, so you might have to be a little bit more picky. There we go. Thank you very much.